So we can begin. The rest people will join later. Okay, today you can see my screen very well. Today we are in week 12. We'll be talking about pre-colonial and colonial Nigeria government. So under this note, we have Hausa slash Fulani, Yoruba, and Igbo system of government. We have the colonial administration, amalgamation and indirect rule, nationalism, then the 1922 constitution down to the present constitution, which is the 1999. Now we begin. What is pre-colonial political system of government? Now, when you talk about pre-colonial system of government, it has to do with the rules that were in place before the colonial master came to take over. Those traditional rules that were in place before the colonial masters they came to take over. That is pre-colonial system of government. Colonial system of government. The way traditional rulers were ruling us before the advent of colonial masters. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it refers to the way Africans were governed before the advent of colonial masters, before the advent of European people, before the advent of colonial rules. That's pre-colonial system of government. Now we'll talk about the first thing here is the Hausa Fulani pre-colonial system of government. That's the first thing here. Now the Hausa Fulani pre-colonial system of government was a centralized system. That's the most important thing. So you can compare it to unitary system of government. Unitary system of government is centralized. So in the Hausa Fulani, their pre-colonial system is centralized. Why is it centralized? It has one particular ruler that governs all of them, and they obey that person. It does not have different rulers, just the way the Igbos have. So it's just a particular rulers. So the system that is a centralized system that existed in what is now the northern Nigeria before the arrival of the British colonial rules. It was largely shaped by the Islamic Caliphate system introduced during and after the Fulani Jihad of 1804, led by Usman Dan Fodio. Take note of that thing. You might see it in objective. Now, the system was theocratic. Many religions and governments were closely linked, and it was heavily influenced by Islamic law and traditions. Now, this Islamic law is called what Sharia law. Please, can you turn off your mic? So it is called Sharia law. Sharia law. So the Hausa Fulani pre-colonial system, they are very centralized and they respect their rulers because they believe the rulers are from God, which is the Imam is sent from God. So if they are obeying them, if they are obeying him, they are equally obeying God. And they have the Sharia laws. These law guides them, and it's greatly influenced by their laws are influenced by Islamic laws, which is also known as the Sharia laws. So now the main features of the Hausa Fulani pre-colonial system of government. What is the features of this Fulani and the Hausa system of government? You know, the Emirates is already the highest, which is the Imam. Is Imam. The emirate is divided into the caliphate was divided into emirates, and each one was headed by imam and the rest because they are responsible for making laws. Now the features, it says centralized system. We all know that the Hausa Fulani, they were strongly centralized. The system was highly centralized under the authority of the imam, who had both the religious and political power. I have both the religious and political power. And I think this was what made the colonial masters to find interest in the Hausa Fulani rules, because the way they rule was so centralized, was so well organized that when they came in, they were so interested in their political system of government. So the centralized system, it was highly centralized. It was highly, so they respect the imam, who is the head. Is the head not only as a political leader but also as a religious leader. So they respect him both politically and religiously. Now we have the role of the imam. The imam was the supreme rule. He governed with the Sharia, which is the Islamic law, as a guiding principle. Then hierarchy of authority. The emirate administration was well organized and hierarchical. That's why we said when the colonial master came, they find this so interesting, like they were already well organized. Now, when you talk about hierarchical, the hierarchy of the Hausa Fulani system of government, we have the imam, who is what the supreme leader. He's supreme. He govern them. Everything revolve around him. So he's supreme and they respect him because he's actually supreme. Then after the imam, we have actually it's supposed to be the waziri, which is the chief advisor of the prime minister. I just scatter it here. So the waziri was the head of all the officials. Then after the waziri, we have the galadima. The galadima was the head of the capital, was in charge of all the capital. Then after the galadima, we have the it's not written here. We have the dogari, which is the head of the police. Is the head of the police. So I've mentioned the galadima. Then we have the madawaki, is the commander of the army. We have Sakin Fada in charge of palace affairs. Sakin Ruwa, overseer of water resources. So all these are just the hierarchy of how the Hausa Fulani political system of government was arranged, from the waziri to Galadima to Madaki, Dagori, Sakin Fada, Sakin, all of them. These were, you see how they were well arranged. They are well arranged. So these are the officials. When you have the Imam, the head, the Galadimas, the administrator of the capital city, the Madawaki, commander of the army. So it was well, when I said centralized, it was well organized and well centralized. Then the merits of the Hausa Fulani system of government. Strong leadership and central authority. It was very strong, very strong. And then based on their rules was well centralized. Their well organized administrative structure. You could see these you could see how it's well the structure of their this thing is well arranged. You could see the IMA, the Galadima, it's well structured. And you cannot find this kind of structure in any of the pre-colonial political system.
Sorry, ma'am,
You
I'm
cannot
not
find
seeing
it.
your screen.
OS is not saying, please.
I cannot see it now.
Can you see it?
No, I cannot.
Okay. So sorry, let me go back. Okay. So we talk about the pre-colonial system of government. I would say pre-colonial system of government. Pre-colonial means it means the rule, how the traditional rulers they actually govern Nigeria before the advent of colonial masters, before they came to take over. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, before they took over. So we're not talking about the pre-colonial system of government, the Hausa Fulani pre-colonial system of government. I would say they are very centralized. They were well centralized. So it's a centralized system that existed in what is now the northern Nigeria before the arrival of the British colonial rules. It was largely shaped by Islamic Caliphate system introduced during and after the Fulani Jihad, led by Usman Dan Fodio. So the system was theoretical. When we say the system was theocratic, it means that religion and government were closely linked, and it was heavily influenced by Islamic law and tradition. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma.
And you can see my screen, right?
Yes, ma.
Okay. Now we'll talk about the features of the Hausa Fulani pre-colonial system of government. I will say they are very centralized. If you're talking about the Hausa Fulani, the first thing you should know is that they are well centralized. It's a centralized system of government. It's highly centralized. The Ima as the head is a political head and also a religious head. So the role of the imam is a supreme ruler, and he operates with what the Islamic law, which is known as the Sharia law. Then hierarchical, the authority is hierarchical. That's when we explain the imam being the supreme rule. We have the Galadima. The waziri comes first before the Galadima. Take note, is the chief advisor or prime minister. Is next to the imam. Then we have the Galadima, which is the administrator of the capital city. We have the Madawaki, commander of the army. We have the Dogare, he was the head of the police. We have the Sakin Fada in charge of palace affairs. These are how they are arranged. It's well structured, it's well organized, and it's also centralized. Now we'll talk about the merits of the Hausa Fulani system. They have strong leadership and are well centralized, well organized administrative structure, just the way we explained here that they are hierarchical authority. So it's well organized. Then they promote promotion of Islamic education and value. Now, what are the demerits? Non-Muslim have limited participation in government because what would they be doing there when they don't understand the laws? They don't even understand Sharia laws and they don't understand the way the system goes. So it's very, they have limited, they cannot even participate in government. The absolute power of the imam could lead to oppression, just the way we have unitary government. Once the power is centralized, it can lead to dictatorship, so it can lead to oppression. The theocratic nature excludes secular views and diversity since it's theoretical. This theocratic, this the imam is in charge, is the political head. So bringing another person like a pastor or a priest or this to come and rule them, it's very difficult. I hope you guys understand.
Yes, ma.
Now we move to the Igbo political system of government. The Igbo political system of government was quite different from the centralized system, like the Hausa and the Yoruba. Now the Igbo political system of government are decentralized or acephalous, which means headless. Political structure meaning they did not have a central ruler or king. Instead, power and decision making were shared among various individuals and groups within the communities. All this one you're saying, oh, king. All this, maybe you watch movies and you see king. The Igbo, they don't have king. They don't have king. They don't have rulers. So the decision making and powers is shared among them, among the groups and among community. So they were actually decentralized. If it's Yoruba, they were semi-centralized. But when it comes to Igbo, they were totally decentralized. Now, the features of the Igbo political system, decentralized government. The Igbo did not have a single central authority. Everybody can make decisions based on community and family head. Then village democracy. Decisions were made collectively in village assemblies where adults may participate. The council of elders, composed of the respected elderly men in the community, played a major role in settling disputes, maintaining custom and advising the villagers, often headed by the Opara, the eldest men in the family. Then the age grade system, age group, are very important in Igbo society. Each age grade has specific responsibility, like maintaining law and order, cleaning the village, organizing festival. So most of these is it like the legislative part of the political rules is actually the age group, the age grade system. They run that because they are responsible for police. The police, when it comes to policing, they are responsible. When it comes to specific responsibility, maintaining order, law, orders in society, like the judiciary, they were fully intact. They were fully intact. So most of the work done there, they are done by the age group. Now we have the Yoruba pre-colonial system of government. The Yoruba pre-colonial system of government was well organized and sophisticated political system that existed before the advent of British colonial rule in what is now southwestern Nigeria. It was largely monarchical but also included check and balances through council and religious institutes. So their own is semi-centralized, and they have king, not like the Hausa and the Igbo. They have king, and they also have check and balances, like they check on the power of the government. Who does this is the Ogboni. The Ogboni society does it. So the political organization of the Yoruba political head, which is the Oba is the political head. I hope you guys can hear me. Hello?
I can hear you, ma.
Okay, which is the Oba. We have the Alafi of what? Of Oyo, right? So when it comes to political head, that's it. Then another thing is we have the aroma. All these are just they are just the features of the Yoruba system of God. The Oyomesi, the army, the Ogboni society. Now this Oyomesi is very important when it comes to the Igbo political system of government, because they are the one responsible for what? For selecting the Alafin. They are responsible for what? Selecting, picking who will rule, who will do this and the rest. So the Oyomi say they are very much, they have full responsibility when it comes to, after they are laughing, they are the next, because they elect the next king. Then the Ogboni society, they actually they act as check and balance. They act as check and balance. They are also there for, like, they, let me say, they interpret the laws. When you break the laws, they punish offenders. They punish those who break the rules, who break the laws. So these were their duties. Then we move to, I'm trying to be fast before we take time. The officials of the Yoruba system of government, they were semi-centralized. Sorry, I was supposed to use semi-centralized. They are not fully centralized when it comes to the only system of government that was really centralized, that was fully centralized, that would say they are fully centralized, is the Hausa Fulani. The Hausa Fulani. The rest, they are not, they are not centralized. They are not centralized. Then single head, which is the king. Check and balances was performed by the Ogboni. Hereditary, yes, it's based on hereditary. Because when the king die, the next of kin is what? Either the son. If he does not have a child, any of the family members or anybody can inherit. Then they pay tribute. They pay tribute. There is impeachment when the government does not, when the king is misbehaving and is not carrying out his duty, he can be impeached. He can be impeached. Now let's go back to this. The Aremo that I said is actually the eldest son of the Alafi. The eldest son of the Alafi. Now, the Oyemisi, they are the 7 hereditary kingsmaker in the empire. Like I said, they select the Alafi. They are responsible for installing a new Alafi. So that's their responsibility, their duty. Now we go to colonial. We have colonial administration. What is colonial? What is colonialism? You heard the word colonialism. Nigeria was colonized by British. This colonialism, the colonial masters. What is colonialism? Now, colonialism is defined as the imposition of a more developed culture over a less developed one, backed up by excursionist and economic adventurism. Now, another definition is colonialism is a system where a powerful country takes control over another country or territory, rules it, and uses its resources for its own benefit. So when you talk about colonialism, it means a powerful people, a more developed country, a more powerful country dominating a lesser developed country. Why? For economic purpose, for resources purpose. So that is what is here. Colonial is a system where a powerful country takes control over another country or territory rules. And what is the benefit of it? For exploitation, to exploit their resources, like the way the British, they did not actually, I not actually came to Africa just because they were just in love with Africa. No, they came because of exploitation. They needed a more this thing for their markets, resources, economic, and they know Africa is developed. It's just that we don't know what we have, and therefore they came to exploit those natural resources and use it for their own benefit. Now, indirect rules, that's for colonialism. We have features of colonialism and the rest. But under colonialism, we have the indirect rules. The indirect, what is indirect rule? Now, indirect rule is a system of colonial administration used by the British in many parts of Africa, including Nigeria, where they ruled through existing traditional leaders instead of replacing them. Now, another clear definition is that indirect rule is a colonial system of government in which the British govern their colonies by using local traditional rulers and existing political structure, like the way we have the Hausa Fulani, they already have a well-established political system. So instead of coming to come and put their own their own rules, they actually made use of what was already available, what was already in place. That's indirect rule. So indirect rule is the British people, the colonial people coming to what? To use our traditional rulers to govern. But underneath, it's not that the traditional rulers are fully in charge. It's the colonial masters. They are using the traditional rulers to what? Control the people. To control the people. Now, what is the features? Features of indirect rules. One, respect for traditional rulers. Indirect rules, unlike the assimilation and the association and the direct rule, when it comes to indirect rule, which was fully operated by these the indirect rule were operated by who? By the British masters in what? Like in Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone. So the features of the indirect rules are they respect traditional rulers, and that was why they used them. They respected the traditional rulers. Now the cost of administration was not high. Why? Because those involved were paid peanuts. They were not well paid. So using traditional rulers, they pay them tiny money, and then they will appreciate it because they don't know the worth of it. So it was really very cheap. So they can just give them small money, and then they get the rest percentage. Now, collection of tax. They made use of natural agricultural products as tax. Come and pay your tax. They will bring palm oil, bring this. And they were benefiting from these things that they were bringing as tax. Then British officials, they use British officials. They use they were to guide and what we need they need them to enforce what colonial regulations. So they were like officers, British officials. They were protecting the interests of the colonial masters. Now, reason for indirect rules. Why did these people use the traditional rulers to govern these people? Why did they use our rulers to govern us? One is because lack of British personnel. These people, they were interested in Africa, but they were not they lacked personnel because people did not really like the climate, did not like the environment. So it's only people that were coming for exploitation that were really fully interested. So they lack British personnel. They were not no people, even the people that were coming, they were running back because of the climate, malaria, disease, everything. So they were running back. So there were no enough people to actually carry out this portion. And there is sufficient funds, no money to pay them, because if you start employing European people, you have to pay heavily. So they don't have money. Instead, they know that if they use traditional rulers, they will pay them small money and then they will still appreciate it. So they have to use them. Then poor climate, like I said, poor climate. The climate, it's the harsh weather of Africa did not allow those British to actually come to Africa. So since there are not enough British personnel due to the poor climate, they have to use traditional rulers. Now, to satisfy their economic need, this is the highest of This is the most reason why they came to Africa, because of economic needs. They wanted to exploit natural resources from Africa. So that's the most highest reason why they came to Africa. Now, large expense of land. Africa was big, especially Nigeria was too large. So just imagine one person ruling the whole, coming, you only whites, and not that he understands the different languages, come and rule Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa. Just imagine the chaos. So they have to use the traditional rulers. Their language barrier, they could not understand us. We could not understand them. So they have to use those people that they know that the people will understand to what to rule them. Hope you guys can hear me. Hello.
I can hear you, ma. I can hear you, ma.
Okay. So when you talk about reason for indirect rules, lack of British personnel, they don't have enough people to come to Africa to what? To rule the people. The insufficient fund, no money. Even if they have the money, they will pay heavily if they employ those people. So they have to use traditional rulers. Poor climate, it was already a harsh weather for these white people, you know, their skin. And then to satisfy their economic needs, that's the peak of all. The large expanse of land, Africa was big, language barrier, of course, they only understand English. Coming to Africa and hearing Hausa speak, Yoruba speak, it's already like a confusion. So they have to use the traditional rulers. Now, now we'll be going to amalgamation. Amalgamation of Africa. What is amalgamation? When you hear the word amalgamation, what does it refer to? So amalgamation refers specifically to the 1914 unification of the northern and southern protectorates of Nigeria by Lord Frederick Lugard, a British colonial master. So amalgamation is the merging of the northern and southern protectorates of Nigeria into a single country under British rule in 1914. So in 1914, they came and merged what? They merged these two protectorates together to become a single what? A single country under the British, so that they can actually rule them. So that they can actually rule them. Now, why did the British amalgamation Nigeria? One, economic reason. Why did I say economic reason? Remember, the northern parts were poor. Even if the British, they found interest in their political system, remember, they were still, when it comes to, even up to now, when it comes to economic development, everything, you don't call the North as number one because they are poor, but they have their agriculture, they have well structured agriculture, but they are not as wealthy as other parts of Nigeria, like this west, the south, and the east. So because of this, Lord Lugard decided to merge them for economic reasons, to merge them because they know the north, they are very poor, and they could not actually get enough resources from them. In order for them to get enough resources, they have to merge these two. So the South was wealthy and generating more money. The North was poor and needed support. So in order to support the North, even though they were getting resources from there, they needed support. So they have to merge them. The administrative convenience. It's easier to manage one colony instead of two. Before you come manage this one, move to another place, manage it. It will be very difficult. So they have to merge them so that they can what? Manage them properly. Then transport and communication to link the what? The north and the south together so that it will be very easy to what? Communicate and what? Move from one location to another with ease. So the link is a transport and communication to link the north and the south through railway and what? Port. Then another this thing is political control to strengthen British control over all regions. That's the fourth one. I think there is a mistake there. That's the fourth reason. Now we'll talk about the pre-independence constitution. Please listen to this because most times, no matter what, you will see this question. They will either ask from pre-colonial pre-independence constitution or post-independence constitution. You should master your constitution, that when question comes from anywhere, you'll be able to answer. So pre-independence constitution, before Nigeria gained independence in 1960, these were constitutions made by the British colonial government to gradually prepare Nigeria for self-rule. And the first constitution was the Clifford Constitution of 1922. The Clifford Constitution of 1922. That's the first constitution. Now, what does this constitution? Now, you should take note of the important roles that this constitution actually played. The important role they played, not just, oh, constitution came in, constitution came in. What were the roles played? What were the important roles played? Why were this constitution enacted? So the Clifford Constitution of 1922 introduced the elective principle. First time Nigeria could vote. So when you talk about the constitution that introduced elective principle was the Clifford Constitution. Now it created legislative council, but only in Lagos and Calabar. The Northern were not included. When it comes to Clifford Constitution, the Northerns were separated from the Southern. So they were not united, they were not brought together as one, just the way Lord look at it. Now, voting was limited to what? Educated, property owning men. If you are educated, you have property like gross income of what? 1,000 pounds, you can participate in election. Without that, you cannot participate. So you see the limited franchise. Now, that's what's it called? The Clifford Constitution now. Clifford Constitution. So another thing in the Clifford Constitution is the divided Nigeria into provinces for no real national unity. They divided, like I said, the north were divided from the southern. But the important thing you should know about Clifford Constitution is that it was the first it introduced the elective principle. It was the first time Nigeria could actually participate in in election. They could vote. And then I think this was what led to the establishment of the first political party in Nigeria. That was in 1923, and it was created by Abat Macaulay. That was the Nigerian National Democratic Party. It was created because of what? This elective principle that was created by Clifford. Now, moving from Clifford Constitution, we have the Richard Constitution of 1946. Now, take note, the important thing that Richard did was introduce regionalism. He introduced the northern region, the western region, and the eastern region. And then he brought these, what was it called? This region, he brought them, united them. You know, in Clifford Constitution, they were separated. But what? He brought them together under one legislative council. I hope you guys can hear me very well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, ma.
So it brought them together. So it brought the first time, it brought the northern and the southern Nigeria, making it one unity, one country. But then even making them one country, the northern was still much, much bigger than western and eastern added together. If you combine western and eastern, it's more larger than it. It's more larger because during the division, they gave northern part the biggest share. And then they have the bicameral legislature, and then the western and eastern, they have the unicameral legislature. Now, aim to bring all Nigeria into government, into one government. Allow Nigeria in regional and central legislative council. Now, it was the first constitution that allowed Nigeria to participate in what? The legislative council. In Clifford Constitution, even when we have the elective principle and the legislative council, Nigerians were not involved in policy making. It was the white people that makes rule for Nigeria. Nigeria did not make rules that suit them. It was the whites that were making decisions, the colonial masters, they were making this, the British, they were making decisions. They brought their own constitution, they brought their own rules to govern us. But then in Nigerian constitution, he allowed even not all, just few of the people into what the legislative council. Now also the aside this, he reduced that franchise that said the differential the unlimited franchise that said okay, Nigeria, if you don't have up to 100 pounds and you're not educated and you've not stayed in Nigeria for up to 1 year, you cannot participate in election. He removed that one and made it more easy. 50 pounds, if you have up to 50 pounds, you can actually what participate in elections. So he made it more easier and also created region. Then the Maxim Constitution. The Maxim Constitution, what is the major role played by the Maxim Constitution? Now, the major role played by the Maxim Constitution is created regional House of more Nigeria's involvement. Now, it was the first constitution that Nigeria fully participated in. It was the first constitution so it was like a homemade constitution. That the first time Nigeria were taking part in decision making of the country. So more Nigeria involvement, widely consulted. That was the Maxim. The other important is that created regional House of Assembly and Central House of Representatives. Widely representation. Each region was represented in the House of Representatives. For example, the Northern have 68 seats and the East and West each had 34 seats. So widely representation. Widely representation. It had the bicameral legislation that brought both the Northern and the Western, they were having bicameral legislature. Now, it was the first real federal structure in Nigeria. It introduced what? Quasi-federalism. Both Northern and Eastern, they were what? Equal when it comes to administration. Autonomy of each region. Each region were given power to make their rules. The regions were given more power and made autonomous. So when you talk about the regional constitution, you should know that it was what? It brought what? The centralized legislative council. Central legislature. Introduced a new lawmaking body called the House of Representatives. And made what? Each region autonomous. Now we have the Littleton Constitution, which was the last pre-colonial constitution. The Littleton Constitution actually was fully established the federalism. Remember, Maxim was the one that paved the way for this federalism. And then Littleton was what finalized the whole thing. So when it comes to federalism, federal system of government, it was the Littleton Constitution that introduced federal system of government, which is having the regions, the Western, the Eastern regions, like the way we have the executive, the legislature. So it was the Littleton that introduced the federal system of government. They clearly separated power between the federal and the region. Are you seeing it? The federal and the region, they have separated power. Then region had premier and more autonomy, prepared Nigeria for self-government and eventual independence. Was this constitution that led to the independence of Nigeria? And then also the Supreme Court, though they don't make the final decision, but then the Supreme Court was actually also established. So the constitution also established a federal Supreme Court for the country. So you can see the way the constitutions are so unique. They have their different unique qualities. They have their different unique. Then it makes the federal capital territory. Lagos was removed from Western region, and it made Lagos the capital territory. That was then before the current Abuja. Then the post-independence constitution. What is the post-independence? After Nigeria gained independence on October 1st, 1960 was the independence constitution. Why is it independence constitution? Because that was when Nigeria gained independence. Nigeria became a constitutional monarchy. They have a parliamentary system of government, which is the Queen of England as the head of state. Now introduce a parliamentary system of government. They introduced a parliamentary. The Queen was the head of state, and what the governor was what the the premier was the head of government. Now federal structure retained, which means the federal and the regional, it was maintained. The Governor General represented the Queen. Governor General represented the Queen. Now, the 1963 Republican Constitution, Nigeria became a republic whereby the Queen was no longer the head of state. But it was not this constitution that introduced the presidential system of government. Even though we have a president, but it was still a parliamentary system of government. Why did I say it was still a parliamentary system of government? Because the president took this place of the queen as the head of state, and the premier remained the head of what? Government. So that's it. That's it. So more Nigeria, we are actually involved in policy making. Then we have the 1979 Constitution. The 1979 now introduced a presidential system of government like the USA. So we are following the system of the USA. The presidential system of government whereby one person is what? The head of state and also the head of government. That's the executive president. Now, okay, we have it in number 2, executive president, not a ceremonial one. Separation of power. The executive, the legislation, and the judiciary were what? They were distinct. They were different. They were working differently from each other. The executive, of course, they implement the law. Legislative, they make the law. Judiciary, they interpret the law. Created the unicameral National Assembly that later becomes what? Bicameral in 1999. Now, the 1989 Constitution, it just followed like that. Proposed a two-party system. It was 1989 that we had two-party system. I hope you guys can hear me. Hello, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, ma.
Okay. Sorry, this note is very long. I'm trying to just summarize the whole thing and rush it. So he created what? The two political party. That was two political party were created. I think the SDP and one other, or is it NPC or so now it proposed two-party system. Now a presidential system of government was also was maintained. It was aborted due to military rule. Later, the military took over. I think military took over 1966, and then again the civilian took over again. Then the 1999 Constitution, which is the constitution we are currently operating on, turned Nigeria into democratic system of government. Now the presidential system of government remains. Then bicameral National Assembly, Senate, and the rest. Now, in federal character, we have 1979. That was when the local governments were created, federal. Then the fundamental rights and federal character principle included. Now, what are the summaries of this constitution? We said the Clifford is known for the first election and limited voting, limited franchise. Richard created region, the eastern, western, and northern region. Macpherson, consultative federal structure begins. That was when the federal structure begins. And then Nigeria fully participated in the constitution, in the policy making of Nigeria. Literature was the true federalism and regional autonomy. Then, of course, we have the 1960, 1963, 1979, 1989, and 1999 constitution, which we are currently operating on. Now, the next topic and the last one we'll treat today is nationalism. What is nationalism? Nationalism is a strong feeling of loyalty and devotion to one's country. placing national interests above foreign or individual interests. So it's a dedication, a love, a loyalty to your country, to one's country. Actually, nationalism was just a promotion of what? Independence, fighting to break loose from colonial rules. Now, it emphasizes the unity, identity, sovereignty, and cultural pride of the nature. They were united, they identify with each other, all Africans, but for one main reason, to break loose from what colonial masters. Now, what are the types of nationalism? We have ethnic nationalism based on shared ancestry, culture, and language, civic nationalism based on shared values, citizenship, legal equality. Cultural nationalism focuses on preservation of groups, culture, and tradition. Regional nationalism built around common religion and identity. Now, what are the characteristics of nationalism? National unity and cohesion. To be united, to be one. That's the main reason for nationalism. Shared history and common destiny. History, colonial masters were just everywhere in charge, so they have the same history. National pride and patriotism. They have love for the Africa, for their country. Desire for self-rule and independence. They actually want to be independent. You know, the colonial master, when they came, they were racial segregation, they came for economic reason, violence, and the rest. So they actually needed to break loose. Symbolism, flag, item, heroes, these are the characteristics. The importance of nationalism in government, unification, it brings citizens together under one national identity. Patriotism, encourage people to support and defend their country. Sovereignty, promote resistance against foreign administration. Development, inspire citizens to contribute to nation building. When you talk about nationalism, they were just fighting for one common goal. Now, nationalism and Nigeria political history played a crucial role in the struggle for independence from what? From Britain. Leaders like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Bafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello used nationalist movement to fight colonialism. They use national, we have the Pan-Africanism, we have a lot of organizations that actually promoted these independence of what? Of Africa, independence of Africa from what? Colonial rules, from colonial rules. Now, another thing is they formed the foundation of self-government in 1960. These these different different unions like the Western African Students, the National Congress of British and West African, all this Pan-Africanism, all of these actually led to what? The independence, self-government of 1960. Nationalist party like the NCNC, AG, and NPC. Now, factors that promoted nationalism in Nigeria. What actually promoted nationalism in Africa? In Nigeria, what led to nationalism in Africa? Colonial exploitation and racism. When they came, they were just after economic exploitation, not because they actually are interested in Africa. They were actually interested in what? The economic they want to gain. So, and also racism, differentiating different, putting black as if putting black aside, you're not equal with them. Their Western education. When later, I think the educated elites, when they came back, their eyes were fully open because when they were in Europe, they saw the different development and they thought that Africans could also be like this. Why not go back home and then establish this kind of thing in Africa? And then because of the education they've gotten, they came back and were what? Fighting for independence. The return of World War II soldiers. Now, those soldiers, when they were in the war, they discovered that even the British, they were humans like them. The Britain, they were humans like them. They were actually weak. They saw the weakness in them. And when they came back, they were like, these people are actually weak. They're not as strong as we thought because they hold them in high esteem. They see them as God, semi-God. And now, seeing these people in battle dying like chickens, what stopped them from actually fighting them to gain their independence? Then media and press, like the Western African pilot, all these actually promoted nationalism. Now, problem of nationalism in Nigeria, ethnic rivalry among major groups, Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, they are not united. Regionalism and tribalism is there, no unity. Colonial divide and rule policies, lack of unified national ideology, all of them are under this rivalry. They are not actually united, they are not working as one. The modern days nationalism in Nigeria is still relevant in national unity campaigns, support for local products, anti-corrupt efforts, and pro-democratic movement. But all these things are still weakened by what? Ethnical, religious conflict, insecurity, and poor government. So when we talk about nationalism of this modern day, we are trying to break loose from all of these corruption, poverty, and the rest. So this is modern nationalism in Nigeria. And in conclusion, I would say nationalism remains a powerful force in Nigeria political development. While it helps secure independence, sustaining national unity today, require inclusive government and respect for Nigeria diversity. So, like I said, the notes, you can go research more, read your notes very well because it's very large. When you want to talk about nationalism, it's a whole lot. It's a broad topic. It's a broad topic. All of them, they are really very large topic. But before you talk about the movement, the nationalist movements, they are under nationalism. You talk about the objective of the nationalism movement. You talk about Pan-Africanism. You talk about the effect of the Second War on nationalism. There are a lot of the effect of national activities in British West Africa. So all of these you can read them up on your own, and then when you have any question, now next class you can actually ask. So if you have any question, you can ask. Do you have any questions? Is there any area you don't understand? I hope you guys are still there.
Yes, ma'am.